G'day there, Cygnets and Swanlings. 2012 Premiership player Nick Smith here. It's my pleasure, as always, to introduce a bevy of bloods, a fan podcast of the Sydney Swans Football Club, brought to you by Noddy and Stevo, a pair of red and white tragics. So pop on the kettle and settle in as the boys had an in-depth chat about the Swans' last game, the Swans' next game, and a little bit about footy too. This is Nick Smith signing off until next week's episode. But in the meantime, remember, be good to your bloods and they'll be good to you.
Welcome back to A Bevy of Bloods. My name's Noddy and I'm joined again by my regular co-host Chris. How are you going, mate?
Yes, great, mate. I just took the mum to the football and I've got a lot to talk about.
Awesome. Well, welcome back to ABOB. In this episode number 48, we're going to be chatting about the round 19 win against the Crows, as well as a bit about the upcoming game against the other Sydney team, the GWS Giants. So fluff up your tail feathers and settle in for a potentially biased yarn about all things to do with our beloved Bloods. Last Saturday afternoon, our Sydney Swans defeated the Adelaide Crows by 33 points, with us scoring 17-16, 118 to their 12-13, 85. All right, mate, first impressions, what do you think of that?
Yes, we got off to a massive start, didn't we? And that was pretty nice to see, considering we haven't started too quickly this entire season, although lately we've really been turning that around. So that was grand. And then the Crows put up a fight. They fought back from the second quarter onwards. They were a little bit unlucky not to kick straighter and make more of a contest of it. But after that first quarter, it became a proper arm wrestle. And when I say a first quarter, I mean a first quarter for the ages. It was the best first quarter since 1997 for 57 points. So 1997. So to put that in context, I was in high school, early high school at that point. So that's some time ago. You can all tell my age at that point then. But it was ended up being a really fun and interesting game to watch, and it's just good to see that even though the Crows really turned it on for the rest of the game, our boys really did step up and got down and dirty in a contested game with lots of tackles and high pressure. And played it out quite well and convincingly by the end. So happy with the game, mate. What about you? What's your first impression there?
Yeah, no, same thing, mate. I think like just an unbelievable start. Like the way we started was just unbelievable. We were there. Everyone was. We had all our mates around us. Your mum was there, as you said. Like and the boys just turned it on. We were three behinds, but there was one rushed. The two actual behinds were gettable. Like Reed sprayed a set shot on goal and Gordon did too, although that was a little further out with the wind, so it would have been tricky. But to think we could have gone, 10-3 or 11-3. I wonder how far back we would have had to have gone for the best for those stats then, and an additional couple of goals. But unbelievable. And like obviously the way the game played out, Adelaide, to their credit, came back, and it was lucky we kind of got that amount of points in the first quarter because the Crows evened things up, as you said. They beat us. They won the second quarter and the third quarter. We won the fourth. But to be honest, in our defence, well, not really. I'm not really defending them. We kicked 2-7 again. I don't know what about. There's something about 2-7 that just keeps. We've done that a couple of times, more than a couple of times this year, and I don't like that combo 2-7 because, as you'll remember, that's what we kicked in that last quarter against the Giants in the elimination final last year. So, yeah, look. 5 of that 2-7 in the third quarter, again, 5 were actual behinds, and I hate to think how many of those were actually gettable. I'm going to say at least 65% of them. Look, we'll take away that of the 9 games we've been leading at three-quarter time, we've won 8 of them. So even if we're under the pump, even if we haven't had a good, quarter in terms of, accuracy, if we're winning at three-quarter time, it seems like we're usually able to close out the game. So it was good to do it again here, obviously, but clearly, we really relied on that buffer in the first quarter. As you already said, from after the first quarter, Adelaide scored more goals than us. They kicked 10 goals to 8. Not necessarily winning the quarters, but yeah, they put on more goals. I think by the end it was almost even in inside 50s. But yeah, the Crows really played well from second quarter onwards. But what were your key takeaways, mate? I was just going to say something. I was going to mention something about free kicks, but I thought I'd save it for a little bit. But,
yeah. Well, I was going to just touch on your point there about Adelaide just scoring a bit more than us. Like, it was a tough game. It was a tough game for the mids in particular. There was a lot of pressure on the ball. It was a high intensity game. It was very entertaining to watch, especially from the ground itself. So, look, our style, was high pressure, high possession for 2 weeks in a row. So the Freo game and this game here have kind of shown that we do have the potential to go hard and fast and also pull back and gain possession and try to control the game a bit. Plus 96 in disposals, plus 69 in kicks, and 99 tackles all up on our side. We're just a really good effort across the board, and in watching the game live, it looked like we were doing a lot well, apart from the kicking straight piece. And in watching the replay from the comforts of home on this rainyish day, it was also nice to see. I was quite happy with the way it all came together. I thought a lot of pieces of the puzzle were coming together really nicely. We'll talk about some of the players in a bit when we go through the ABOB and some of the honourable mentions of the players that really turned it on, but just particularly happy about everything that's happened there. One thing that I wasn't happy about was that I actually took my mum to the game. It was her first ever Swans experience. You got to meet her.
Nice. G'day, Carol.
Oh, Carol. She hates Kazza, so don't do that to her.
Noted.
But we spoke about it last week, didn't we, Noddy, that I'm not a big fan of booing old players, and
you got in my head, mate. I barely booed at all.
There you go. Good. I'm glad I threw you. Who I didn't throw was my own mum. So when he's taking that set shot, I think at the end of the second quarter or third quarter or something, he got to take a set shot. And people start kind of like grumbling, a little bit of booze kick off in the O'Reilly stand and near the rubble. And my mum's like, what's going on? Why is everyone booing? And I'm like, oh, he used to play for the Swans last year and he moved to Adelaide. And like lightning quick, my mum just goes, boo! Boo! I'm just like, oh, Mum, calm down. She's like, no, he's got to stay at home. I'm like, that is his home. She's like, oh, boo! Anyway, so it was entertaining. So, yeah, I obviously didn't get that kind of from my mum, but she was way more involved than I ever imagined, and she's probably going to go more often, mate. So,
mate, that was awesome. It was awesome catching up with Carol, and she came prepared. She had some snacks. She had some fancy snacks.
Yeah,
she had some seaweed chips, which I loved from my time in Japan, and had some delicious fava bean crisps.
Yeah, this is mum food at the football. The seaweed and fava beans. I'm like, and almonds. I'm like, Mum, they're not chips and pies.
That's right. Yeah, you can only have 7.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then obviously Jules and Erin came and they brought a party-sized bag of salt and vinegar. Chris,
yeah.
So we were sorted for the first half. We had like a real spread. My key takeaways, mate, if it's my turn. Look, Papley again is playing a role. He's doing his thing up front, but he's also chopping out in the center bounce and just providing such a point of difference. He's a weapon, really. Like he seems to just be getting better and better, and obviously just needs to keep working on the scoreboard pressure. Obviously, we looked at a second ago. He's kicked 18 goals, 21 for the year, even though he's only played 12 games. So he's thereabouts, and it's not going to take long to. Well, hopefully, we've got a couple more games of the year, and then hopefully a solid final season. If he clicks, then it's going to work out in our favour. Anyway, the hit-outs. Back to your comment. 99 tackles. That is phenomenal. That's huge.
Massive.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like past 2 weeks, we've tackled a lot, but we've surpassed that as well. Again, I'm going to look at hit-outs. Just very briefly. I'm going to go back to tackles. We had 22 inside 50 tackles to Adelaide's 9 for the game. We had 9 in the first quarter alone. So almost 50% of our inside 50 tackles occurred in that first quarter. So that goes back. Yeah.
And I was just going to jump in there to put it in some context because 99 sounds like a big number. But against Freo, we only had 62 Against the Bulldogs, we had 67. And against Essendon, where are we? We had, sorry, everyone, 60. So we're hitting the 60 mark, 99 this game, just to put it in context there, Noddy. So a huge game.
I got 89 tackles for the Dogs, mate, just in case. 89, they got 67. Yeah.
Oh,
but
you.
Yeah, but either way, like,
you're right. Sorry, my apologies. Looking at the wrong thing. You're right. 89 against the Doggies. That's right.
Yeah. Funnily enough, they 67 tackles and 67 points, so they get a point per tackle. That was 2 weeks ago. I'm hit outs. So Riley O'Brien, he really looks like a drunk giraffe, that bloke, seriously. But all love to him, is in a bunch of my fantasy teams. But 61 hit outs to our 36, so minus 25. Drill down into that. Rob had 15 hit outs to advantage, whereas Reed had 4 and Hickey had 3. So there was clearly an advantage there. So, I'm going to talk about Hickey later on. We will say it's the 8th time this year that we've scored 100 plus points in a game. Of those games, only one has been against a top 8 team, and that was against Geelong in Buddy's 1000th. So it's hard to know whether or not that was an emotional-driven game or we actually played well. It was quite early on as well. So it's the 6th time that a team has put on 85 points or more on us. So, honestly, credit to Adelaide. I think they are going to be a very exciting team. They're young as well. I think they're a bit younger than us. But, they've got some really exciting young players coming through, and obviously Matty Nix there at the helm. But more than anything, obviously, loved getting the win. Loved getting the win because we just wanted to bank this one, right? I was super nervous about it. They were below us, so we had this tendency of playing better against the higher teams, but like playing poorly against the lower teams. So yeah, just very, very happy that we came away with that one, mate. We'll just finally say good spread of goal kickers. So we had 11 different goal kickers, and I think you had mentioned. Have you mentioned Heaney already?
No, I was just going to say Heaney's actually surpassed his goals for the year of his career. So 37 goals for Heaney. Most was in a whole season prior to this one. Was 36 last year out of 21 games, and we've played 18 now. So it's going to show that Heaney's kind of going to be quiet. He's tried him in a few different roles, but I think we're playing him up forward a bit more. We're getting more of the juice out of him. So I'd like to see that continue anyway, but kind of seems to be more natural. The heat, yeah.
The heat is on fire. So we'll add to that, mate. In the top 100 goal kickers in the league, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players. We've got Buddy on 38, Heaney on 37, Wilbur on 25, Papley on 18, Chad on 13, Errol on 13, and Parker on 12. So, yeah, and I imagine Sammy Reid would be somewhere there, not
close,
too far away. Yeah.
And
potentially
Amati as well. Yeah.
Amati and maybe McLean before he dropped out. But yeah, so it's a good spread. We had a good spread in this game as well, so very happy with that. So let's have a quick recap. We're coming 6th, which is one up from 7th last week. We're on 12 wins and 6 losses, and we are behind Freo in 5th and ahead of Carlton in 7th. And the Dogs have snuck into 8th. I don't like the look of that. Those cheeky buggers. All right. We almost jumped into 4th. Of course, Fremantle had a draw with Richmond in the most dramatic of circumstances. The Noahs, could they just pull their fingers out and actually kick a goal?
Richmond stuffed it up for a couple of teams, themselves and for us. Oh gosh, those 2 points are making a big difference right now for Freo.
Definitely, I mean,
holding us back.
Collingwood as well, like another close escape, right? Elliott kicks the goal on the siren after the siren to win by 4. Both of those, if Richmond had kicked one of those 2 last goals and Elliott had missed, then we would actually be sitting in 4th place. Yep. So yeah, it was unfortunate, but you want to try and make sure that you've got your own fate in your own hands. So we can't be relying on that, but sometimes that is what happens. But anyway, again, 12 wins, 6 losses. We've got 4 more games to go. We need at least one more win, really, to secure a place in the finals. But, we'll talk about the run home later on. It's looking okay. It's certainly not a done thing, but you want to talk about now, mate, or after?
Let's talk about it now. I think it's an important part. So as you mentioned, there's 4 games to go: GWS, North, Collingwood, and St Kilda. Since maybe round 16, round 15, been tracking it, how the rest of the season's going to look. And we'd had Adelaide as a must-win game along with the Bulldogs from memory. So it's kind of the fact that we've got Freo amongst that as well of the recent games to win has really propelled us in a good position, because that's one of those, I know I'm sorry for using the old terminology, but a 8-point game right there. It's we were fighting with Freo to take spot 4, 5, 6, and that win really got us close to in that battle. So a couple games to go. You'd imagine that Collingwood would be the hardest game of the 4 of these, but like you said, Noddy, we don't play the best against the bottom, and we kind of turn it on for the top. So it's just kind of a bit of a dangerous path for us, but it is what it is. And if we can win, 3 of the 4 of these, we are giving ourselves a very, very high chance of top 4, which is well needed.
Definitely, mate. And just looking at that from the bye, we've only dropped the Port Adelaide game, and that was away, and that was, by 23. It was sort of a bit closer than that, I think. But the scoreboard doesn't seem like that. 4 goals in the end, roughly. But then that just infuriating Bombers game where we lost by 9. If we'd bagged that, we'd be on a 5-game win streak, which is a pretty good win streak to be on coming into the home stretch. But obviously only 2 losses since the bye, still very good. Sitting nicely. It's funny the way the media flips on us, isn't it? When we beat the top 4 teams, it's about how badly they played, and then all of a sudden we beat Freo, and then somehow the narrative changed, and now we're a top 2 chance and top 4 chance, and we're going to win the flag. And
the narrative has kind of changed again now with Elliott kicking that goal against Essendon in a game that Essendon should have won that game.
Yeah,
Howe got tackled, 35-40 in front. That could have been a goal. They could have done anything they could have to defend that ball. And now Collingwood is apparently on their way to win the premiership. I think the AFL writers get very, very bored, and they need to write about something, so they jump on whatever is sensational. No one's surprised by that. So, like you said, I think you mentioned this last week, Noddy. If we're not in the headlines, that suits me perfectly fine. I think that's a good thing. It's a distraction. So, all for it. Go Collingwood. Just keep taking that limelight, and we'll maybe see him in the finals, but who knows?
Speaking of limelight there, I think they've announced that this is a hot topic, but we're just on it now. So they've announced the round 23 games, and I think it's Collingwood Carlton playing on Sunday afternoon, and we start an hour after them. So we're certainly going to be flying under the radar there against St Kilda, even though we'll be in Melbourne as well. I dare say there'll be a bumper crowd there for the Collingwood Carlton game, considering they're both playing pretty well and in the 8, so that should be pretty exciting. Let us do our thing in the background. All right, mate, we better crack on to favourite moments, mate. What were your favourite moments of the game?
2 of them I've got just to tag on. Hayward's little side boot action over to Goulden. So in amongst it all, pressure, he's kind of getting tackled, ball kind of rolls his way down. Hayward just puts a bit of a inside boot of him out to Gordon, who then scores a goal. That was just beautiful. And Hayward's done that, little funky things like that. He seems to know where his mates are around him. He's got really good awareness. Do you remember that Papley goal earlier in the year when it's just Hayward's just tapped it on to a totally free Papley running towards goal? This is just another instance of that where Hayward seems to know exactly where his man is and pass it on. So that was really fun. I love that one. And it's not outside of his remit, is what he does. It's what Hayward does. The other one that's kind of got in my mind is going to stay there for a long time would be Blakey's spoil on McHenry. He was defending a 2-on-1, 2 of them both going towards goal. That was a guaranteed goal. Basically, all you got to do is draw in your man, palm it over and take a quick kick, and and you're 6 feet away from goal. Blakey knew exactly where he needed to be and knew exactly how much pressure he needed to apply. And as soon as he applied the right pressure, he saw the ball being passed over, ran over to McHenry, got a spoil on, and stopped a quite clearly goal was going to be scored on us. So massive on Blakey, who had a great game. We'll talk about in a second in the ABOB. Spoiler alert, but yeah, super happy, mate. What about you? Favorite moments in that game?
Yeah, I'll start with the very exciting moment where Papley basically gets a clearance out of the centre square and gets it going forward inside 50. I believe it was fisted by Dawson and straight back down Papley's throat and just loads up from outside 50 and basically starts celebrating before it's even sailed through. And that was just another brilliant Papley moment. Reminiscent of his game against the Dogs a couple of weeks ago where he was just all over the place, but we're also going to be talking about him soon, so I won't say too much. Blakey's massive mark. Okay, so I think the commentator said flying lizard, and we were saying earlier, great call, but let's keep the alliteration separate. So let's go with leaping lizard.
Love it.
And Robbie Fox, actually, he does get up there too. So let's keep flying fox for him and leaping lizard for Blakey. But that just reminds you, like, he's got so much to his, he can do so much. He's sort of just been that run and gun player this year. We forget that he can actually get up there and take a specky. Remember that game he played? He was still playing full key forward. This would have been, I don't know, 2018 or 19 maybe. 19, I think, and he was against Hawthorn and he took an absolute screamer right over the pack, and it was just unbelievable. It was a little bit like that, and he he got right on top of their ruckman, so he's getting a bit of airtime there.
He can get up,
yeah.
He seems so slight, so when he gets up, he goes flying. Yeah,
I think he just surprises himself. He just sends himself into orbit. But yeah, no, that was unreal. Buddy's bump on Laird. I mean, let's be honest, Buddy was bumping everything left, right and centre. Yeah, that was a big one. I think the commentators were also making note of that. I think it was Healy actually saying, "Oh, you better tone it down because he'll miss a week if he hits him." And, I mean, look, that's one way to think of it, but like the other is, Buddy was clearly on a mission and really helping out. He looked very dangerous. So, yeah, that was a good one. I think that's us, mate. All right, well, we are going to move just on Hayward. Sorry, you said that wind up from Kane Corn saying that he's the player that Adelaide should go for. This guy, can we put a muzzle on him? Like, I don't know what.
I think plenty of players and fans have tried to, and it only gives him more fire. Let's look at some of his history. Let's have a quick Kane Corns moment. He had a go at Ginnivan earlier in the year for taking the GoPro around after a game win that Collingwood marketing gave Ginnivan a GoPro and said, take this around while you're celebrating with the fans and in the clubhouse and blah, blah, blah. And he did, and Kane Corns made a massive deal about it. And everyone's like, he likes the limelight, it's not a big deal. And then Ginnivan comes out, I think the next week he kicks like 4 or 5. He has a great game. And Kane Corns, he doesn't back down. That's one thing I do like about him. He's just like, I'm sticking to this. He dyed his hair blonde as like an homage to be like, all right, you got me this time kind of thing. But then to just give a bit more flavour and a bit more salt to the whole thing, he was also the one that was rallying around Ginnivan to say, like, he's getting all his free kicks from head-eye tackles. And alas, here we are now with a whole bunch of new rules around high tackles. So the Corns has got his little fingers wrapped around the AFL at the moment, and he's using it to full capacity. So he used to be a tagger on the field, and now he's just tagging freaking Gil McLaughlin at the moment, just get him to do what he wants. So good on him, whatever. He's an entertaining character, and I kind of appreciate his honesty sometimes.
He's pretty vocal on the Buddy contract talk as well, but
he is.
We can talk about that later in Hot Topics.
Well, he's helping us pay less for him, so that's the thing.
Yeah, well, only if we get the deal over the line. All right, mate, let's do the ABOB medal, hey? So ABOB medal, as we all know, is our equivalent of the Bob Skilton medal. The Bevies' best bloods this week in 3-2-1 points order were Papley, Parker and Blakey. All right, mate, kick us off with Paps.
Papley, we've spoken about him a couple of times already in the favourite moments. He was flashy. He was unflashy. He had the touches. He had the pressure. He was all about it. Offensive effort all the way through. A couple of really fancy, flashy moments, as we mentioned. And he's just looked lively, like he's done 2 weeks ago against the Dogs. He just looks like a very, very dangerous player everywhere. He's fantastic under the knees, just on the ground is incredible. He picks up pace very quickly, so he's a dangerous threat for a tackle. He just does everything you need him to do. And the more time he's spending in the centres and trying to get that kind of centre and then offensive unit kind of pressure working, the more time he's spending there, the more he's kind of seemingly being able to do more with it. So the only thing he needs to do is probably kick a little bit straighter, as we mentioned earlier, and then he'd be the all-encompassing greatest player in the team week in, week out. But he's bloody well close, honestly. He's really, really good. So good on you, Papley. I think this is the first time of the year he's received 3 votes, and it's just across the board, mate. What about you? What are you thinking? What's the stats on old Paps?
Yeah, no, 22 disposals, 5 tackles, 2 goals, 2 behinds. So that's your 50% there. 8 inside 50s, which is the best Swan. 5 clearances, 12 score involvements. Again, really getting involved. Best on ground, and the next best Swan was Rowie with 5. So, yeah, it was all there. It was another really good game, and yeah, no, it's very pleasing seeing him put it together, as we say, at the right time of the year. So, yeah, well done, Paps. Keep doing your thing, mate. Love your celebrations, obviously. Yeah, what a legend. Okay, we're going on to Parker now, and this is probably one that maybe not all Swans fans would have called, but we agreed that just he had a pretty unheralded game in terms of, it wasn't so flashy. There weren't brilliant moments, but he really did Parker things, and to the point where we think he deserved to be in the 3-2-1 this week. Mate, do you want to talk us through his numbers?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you mentioned, it wasn't flashy, but he really, really got it done. 32 pressure acts, best Swan, 29 possessions, best Swan, 12 tackles, the best Swan, and 8 clearances, best Swan alongside Rowie. So massive. The awesome numbers, the stats are huge. You watch the game over, he was really amongst it. He did nothing flashy compared to some of the other players. He just got his job done. I think the most like over the top flashy thing that he did was a good spoil, which led to a body goal via Warner. But all in all, Parker just under the radar doing Parker things. I'm not surprised that the coaches' votes don't necessarily have him in, and I think a couple of places didn't kind of note him. But when you look at those numbers and you watch the game again, you're like, wow, that's just another game where, Parker might not get those biscuits, but bloody hell, he was absolutely in there, kneading the dough, if that's even an expression that I've made up across the board there. So good on Parker. Love it.
Yeah. He needed the dough.
He needed
the dough. We need the dough. All right, Blakey, mate. So we've spoken about him already. Obviously, he was working hard defensively. He was looking pretty fancy, that mark. Oh, just a thing of beauty. His kicking is as precise as ever, although he did have a few clangers. But, yeah, look, I mean, great game, really. How did you see it, mate?
Yeah, massive. I think some of the big numbers that kind of really showed off what he was doing. So he had 8 rebounds, best on ground, 5 inside 50 still, 8 intercepts, best on ground with Stevens, of all people.
Interesting.
So, yeah, really interesting. That's a particularly interesting one. And also 26 disposals to go with it. And then throw amongst that, the spoil that he had, a couple of tackles that he had, some pressure acts that he made, and definitely a couple of those marks that were just a thing of beauty that few people can do. Mate, the Blakey, just the flashy lizard, just getting it done. He became my mum's favourite player only because he was having those really bright green shoes that she could recognise. So, yeah, she was just like, oh, he's the guy now, because that big mullet looked awful. Love him.
That's awesome, mate. We've got a couple of honourable mentions. Obviously, we always love to talk about lots of players when we have a good game and we get a good win. So I think you're going to just rattle off your three and then I'll do my three after that.
Yep, solid. I'll do mine quickly. So Clarkey, another victim. He held Dawson to only 9 disposals at halftime. Matthew Nicks kind of rolled him up forward at that point, kind of had a bit more of an impact thereafter, but it seems like to me he took another scalp. 26 pressure acts along the way too for old Clarkey, so a really good job there. Stevens really deserves a mention this week. His best game of his career, I think, just in terms of consistency. He does not let up. His fitness is insane. He did a really, really great job. Again, tackles, pressure, just everywhere. And his usage of the ball seemed to be a little bit better this week. I've mentioned that in the past, and his defensive effort as well. But in this week, I think he really, those things that were worked on and were actively better, like visually better. And I think all in all, just a really great progression for him, and keeping him in the side, and maybe just Joey being out and having him in the side to get those extra games in is really paying dividends. So good on the coaching staff for making that happen. And the last one I'll mention is just quickly Buddy. Played angry. Clearly Kane Corns has gotten to him, calling him not even close to the top 200 players. Lloydie laughed at that and is just giving him he's at least the top 100, at least, come on. Anyway, nonetheless, he played mad. He had some great inside 50 field kicks, as he normally does.
Yeah, those first two, Papley and Reed in the first quarter, just sensational, weren't they?
Yes, beautiful. He's a great field kick and just does a number. So if he's not kicking the goals, he's setting them up, and Buddy had a great game, mate. So those are my three, Clark, Stevens and Buddy for the honourable mentions. What about you? Who have you got on your side?
I got Rowie, Foxy and Tommy McCartan. So kick off with Rowie. So 26 disposals, 8 tackles, 8 clearances, best on ground with Parker, as we mentioned. Rowie, he was just tough. He was in the thick of it. And because of that, he was tackling, he was getting tackled. He just showed a lot of toughness, sort of brushed off a lot of the heat he got, but also, dished it out. So, a couple of the plays that he was involved in did lead to some Crows goals, but you put it down to the fact that he's so actively, in the battle. Like he really is at the coalface there, just doing all the dirty work. So you're not always going to have 100% disposal efficiency. But yeah, I think that's the one part of his game, like his general field kicking, if he can improve a little bit. But I mean, not at the detriment of his ferocity and his heat that he brings at the contest. So we're really well played, Rowie. 30 pressure acts, which was number 2 for Sydney. Foxy, again, I feel like this is 3 weeks. This might be Foxy and Stevens, maybe 3 weeks in a row, getting a mention.
It is
25. Yeah, I think, coincidentally. 25 disposals, 6 rebounds, which was second at Swans, Blakey first, obviously. We talked about this at the game. We think, I think he's at the moment our best hybrid defender, meaning that his defensive work is as good as Tommy McCartan and Rampy probably, but his run off the halfback is well, it's not better than Lizard, but it's a pretty good number 2 or 3 to have there. Obviously there's Lloydie and Ollie and the other players there, but just a really, really great game. And one spoil that he did, I think it was Phil Thorpe or Fogarty. It was unreal. It just came from behind.
I remember that.
Bridged the gap and then got around him and just punched it out, and was just, and you could see how much it meant because Tommy and Ramps went straight up to him and bum tap quota, just out of this world. Just really congratulated him. But on Tommy McCartan, obviously Tex tried to throw his weight around, rough him up a bit, but Tommy was all over him. So just quickly, mate, Warner doesn't get any love this week. So is it because he's just been playing so crazily good? I mean, his I'm just quickly looking at his numbers. So 25 disposals, a goal, 8 tackles. Yeah,
But it's kind of tough. Like I think one of the things when you got to win is that you want to talk about a lot of the players and you have certain amount of time. I think Warner doesn't get a mention, and it's unfair considering, like you said, how well he's been playing.
Yeah.
But he wasn't his insanely dominant self. So we're like, oh, he had a quiet week. He had a quiet week for an elite player, but he's also a 21-year-old boy. So
I know he's sort of, this is a problem of his own making, isn't it?
That's
like
right.
he's just shot out like into the stratosphere. And so when he has, like, by all accounts, quite a very good game, we're not as impressed.
We're not even mentioning him. So, probably not his best game of late, and I think that maybe that's why he doesn't get a mention, but a bit unlucky there, to be fair, because he especially in that second half, he really turned it on. He found a bit more space. I kind of felt that he had a bit of a soft tag and was kind of releasing a bit quickly, getting rid of the ball a bit faster, a bit too much pressure on him. And he still did the number with it, like he wasn't awful. But then he definitely found more room and space in that second half, and did some really funky things, burning through some traffic. Some nice tackles, a couple of good acts that way. So, Warner, mate, he's our diamond in the rough. Like, he saw that coming. It's great.
Speaking of diamond in the rough, I've been rolling around this idea of a nickname. Obviously, he's the Chad or Chad, but I feel like every time I'm going to play Oz-Lotto, I'm going to pick number one. For the Powerball, because he's kind of a Powerball, don't you think? He just sort of powers through a Powerball or Pineapple. Obviously, Jules, the pineapple hair, her assessment last week is hilarious. And then I tried to find images of horses and pineapples because of that wonderful embrace they had last week. And then went down this rabbit hole on the internet of just weird shit. Of like, you remember that picture of a horse? Someone had drawn a horse completely as a pineapple.
I saw that,
and I was like, should I post this? It's like a little bit too quirky, but
a little bit too weird for 9 o'clock in the morning.
Here I am talking about Warner's game last week again. All right. Coaches' votes, mate. 10 for Papley, 8 to Laird, 6 for Blakey, 2 for Rowie, 2 for Hayward, 1 for Mills, and 1 for Berry. And I think Sam Berry had a very good game. He was a very good player. Heaps of tackles, heaps of pressure, really calm around the ground. Kind of did remind me of Rowie in a way. They both kind of got that longer hair and that similar game style. So a matchup that I hope blossoms over the years, and one we look forward to. But good to get the chocolates this time, obviously. All right, mate, we're going to move on to hot topics now. So how do we pull up after the match? What changes would we make, if any? What's happening in the VFL and anything in the AFLW? So off the top, Hickey listed as injured, but nothing really mentioned after the game. Was it a foot injury or something?
I don't know exactly what it was, but they mentioned that he had an injury during the game, but Sam Wicks never came on, and we just played it out. So I don't know what that was all about. Hickey seemed to be on there. He seemed to be laboured in that last quarter for sure, but he's fine. So from all I understand is everyone pulled up okay, so we got away with another week.
Couple of things that could have been worse than maybe, like Goulden got that knee from Buddy straight to the gob,
the jaw,
but I think he was all right. And then at one point Warner stepped out of a contest holding his elbow. It might have just been a stinger or something, but he's certainly not listed as injured. But one to keep our eyes on.
It's getting to that time of the year, mate, because now you're mentioning it. I think Stevens tried to stop a ball as it was going past. He hit his hand and he was kind of shaking his hand off a little bit. Blakey, after a tackle, held onto his ankle at one point. And it's getting to that time of the year where every single time the boys kind of like walk away and hop a little bit, or they hold onto a limb, my heart is in my throat. I'm just like, no, not again. And then, but we've gotten away with another week now. So let's just see out the season, getting into finals with minimal little injuries, please. Rest them, do whatever we've got to do to kind of have the best team out there.
Touch wood. So, all right, so if Hickey does go down, I don't think Ladham's back from his thumb yet. What are we doing with ruck? Are we rolling with Sammy Reid and have a bit of backup from Amati and maybe even Buddy? Why hasn't Buddy ever played ruck? I'm sure he could do it. I've got this sinking feeling that he could absolutely kill the ruck.
I suspect but he doesn't leap too well. But he'd be mostly just interested in hurting the bloke. I think that's probably why it wouldn't work. He'd just be sitting there just trying to hurt guys. So maybe that's the reason why it doesn't work for him. And yeah, I don't know. Like Tom Hawkins has great success playing that forward ruck. He scores a lot from it. So I don't know whether Buddy has the patience and the wherewithal to do it. He's too busy running around like a madman.
So the other one there is obviously Cal Sinclair's, been toiling away in the VFL and just being a superb clubman again. So yeah, maybe if Hickey doesn't make it in and Laddams doesn't, then maybe they bring Cal in and then Sammy stays as that support role.
Yeah,
because you're probably not going to bring
numbers.
What's that, sorry?
I was just going to say, given some of the numbers, we spoke about the effectiveness of some of our rucks, like Ricky. I'm looking at Reed and Hickey, and I call them Ricky. Hickey,
they've evolved.
They've evolved into one big monster. 30% again for old Hickey, and so not particularly strong. Reed at 37%. So I don't think. I guess where I'm heading with this is that if we do have an Amadi or a McLean to share duties with a Sam Reed for a game, I don't think we'd be that much more ineffective in the ruck battles, in the contests themselves. Having said that, Hickey's just general centre play, his general mids play, being able to find guys around him and get a good handball out to the good player and to the most dangerous player around him is just special. And so we may not get the clearances, but we make up when we get the ball to be more contested. We kind of make up there. So that's kind of something we will miss. But if maybe an Amati or McLean can do a bit more in the actual ruck battles themselves, maybe it ties them up and we're kind of in a better place for it. But yeah, tough one for us to call. I think we all agree that we prefer just to have Laddams back in, really.
Well, I mean, the other question, obviously, and there's a few little pieces to that. Obviously, we'll do the quick preview after this, but we've got Braden Pruce for the Giants, who's a legit giant. He's 206 and 113 kegs. And then they've also got Kieran Briggs, who's a ruckman anyway. I think he's playing up front. I don't think Flinny's in at the moment, but he could be easily. But so they've got some tall timber. So we've got to consider that. But then the other thing is obviously Joey Kennedy, but had leather poisoning in the VFL game against Frankston. He got 37 touches. In the goals there, Hayden got 3-1, Campbell got 2-1, Logan only kicked 1-3 again, so a little bit off the mark there. But in terms of other players getting amongst it, Taylor 32, Connors 26, Gussie 24, Ronk 23, Campbell 22, Corey 21, and Roberts 20 disposals. So we've got some good depth there as always. I guess it just depends. I guess here's a question without notice. Does Joey Kennedy come back straight back in? And if so, who has to make way?
Joey Kennedy's got a limited amount of games ahead of him, right? He's getting to that age where, especially these kinds of injuries, they're going to come on more often. They're going to take him out for a bit longer. So it's one of those ones you don't want to waste him in the VFL. We want to make sure that he's healthy. Can you play AFL? Yeah, a VFL? Yes, I can. Cool. There's no doubt at all that you'll be able to play it up in the AFL. So if he's going to play, you got to play him in the AFL. I feel you have to. But I just don't know where. Like, who do you take out?
So who comes out?
Yeah, I don't want to take out Stevens. That'd be the obvious choice in some instances. But he's played so well of recent, or at least consistently getting better week in, week out. Getting progressively better for each game he's played. And it'd just be a shame to kind of rock that, considering he finishes games better than anyone else on the ground. His fitness is just insane. He is so fit. He runs all day. And I don't know whether we need to bring him out. Juzzy's been a little bit quiet. Maybe not the flashy Juzzy. He's doing it just a good wingman game, but not an exceptional one like he was earlier in the season in last year. So I don't know who. I'm really struggling with this one, honestly, Noddy, because
Clark stays in.
Oh, that's a great question. Does Clark stay in? You'd have to say
another good game, didn't he?
Another great game. Close out the doors. That's 3 in a row. Does he have a space against the Giants? Does he have a space in every matchup we play? I guess is the real question there.
All right, so we're not sure on teams, so we'll have to wait and see what happens. Obviously on Thursday when they're announced. Always excited for teams. It's one of the high points of the week. All right, let's move on to a few more talking points here. I might throw the mic over to you, mate, and you can pick one and go with it.
I was going to say, Buddy Franklin overtakes God himself at 133 goals of all time.
Switch it.
Outright fifth.
1,033.
Sorry, 1,033.
133. He kicked that in a season in 2008.
Just
No,
about,
it wasn't.
Yeah, just about. Now, we were talking about this earlier. It was yesterday, the day before. It's controversial in a way, isn't it? Is it? Do you think it's controversial?
Are you talking about the... Yeah, it's a little bit controversial. Let's do it though.
Go for it.
If this podcast is known for anything, it's our burning satire and controversy.
Yeah, heavy controversy. Yeah.
So I'll just bring up the pick. Where is it? Here it is. I was trolling a Facebook chat about best goal kickers and everything, and then of course there's the normal list that we're all familiar with. That's the one that the AFL is pumping out. We know it a lot. Obviously, it's relevant this year because Buddy has been, he's first guy to make 1,000 in that long, and maybe the last ever to do it. And so we're aware of the players directly below and above him as he makes the climb. So he's obviously overtook Jack Titus already. And then he's just, as you've mentioned, overtaken Gary Ablett Sr. To sit in outright fifth. The next player is Doug Wade, who's an I think, Cats player in the 60s and 70s, and he kicked 1,057. So, and then, of course, from there it's Dunstall, Coventry and Lockett. And so these are the numbers that are thrown in our face because this is what we think is the list of greatest goal kickers. And then I came across a comment from someone called the Purple Army. Let's assume they're from Fremantle way. Urging the full list to be posted in future. And this is how it reads. 1,417, Ken Farmer. 1,360, Tony Lockett. 1,299, Gordon Coventry. 1,271, Austin Robertson Jr. 1,254, Jason Dunstall. 1,196, Ted Tyson. 1,095, George Doig. I'm not sure of the pronunciation there. 1,057, Doug Wade. 1,045, Tim Evans. 1,034, Bernie Naylor. 1,033, Lance Franklin. 1,031, Gary Ablett Sr. So clearly there's a smattering of waffle and sample superstars in there. And what we get is the VFL sanitized version where they
is almost beautiful into a way that we're just convinced now. But then this is where we got talking, isn't it? This is where I started then laying on some of my tinfoil hat business. So I got thinking, if we're going to be choosing waffle or sample as being part of the numbers, but the AFL only talks about the VFL numbers, which is actively where it's at right now. And I don't know about you, Noddy, I think that's unfair. I don't know the quality of the competition back when your man in the early 1930s was kicking goals and scoring 1,400 of them. So it's kind of hard for me to put mention against that. But if we're going, so that got me thinking. Let's do a fair list. Let's do a list that only includes players and only includes the period from the AFL when it transferred to the AFL. And all of a sudden, we start knocking down these numbers, right? So Dunstall only for 5 years played in the VFL. Plugger, 7 years in the VFL. Coventry died in 1968. D. Wade retired in 1976. Ken Farmer retired in 1982. And Austin Robinson retired in the 70s. So effectively, all of a sudden, Buddy Franklin is number one of all time. Are we on board, Noddy? Are we going to do we do this?
I think we
put this
are,
on shirts?
but I don't know if anyone else would be. But other than Swans fans, and maybe Buddy.
I think Buddy might be okay
help
with
him.
this.
might help him get the contract cash he's
extra
seeking.
150 grand he needs, yeah.
Yeah, look, I don't know. Obviously, clearly, the Vics would feel aggrieved by that. It's just another example of, and yes, we love the South Melbourne brethren looking after us down there in Melbourne, but there is this ongoing sort of almost, I don't know. I mean, this is an arrogant position to not even include Waffle and Sample, and I can only imagine their logic is, well, it was not a professional league, in the sense that the VFL was professional before the era of professional sport, but still it was top league, And then they would point to, the state of origin matches where Victoria would wipe the floor of everyone. But I don't know, I've been thinking about this, where I think there's like 3 in the VFL at the moment. I think the top 4 teams are the AFL Academy teams in the northern states. Southport obviously is standalone; they're doing really well, but you don't hear about the VFL fans or the Victorians complaining about the NEFL teams anymore as much, because obviously some of the NEFL teams are the academy teams and they're not doing too poorly. So in the same vein, is it reasonable to say, was the Waffle and the Sample that far removed from VFL? At that time, whenever you're looking at it, but I don't know, mate. It's an interesting. You mentioned something about the baseball though in America, didn't you?
Yeah, so the baseball's got a really interesting one. I'm a bit of a baseball nut, and there's always a talk about the stats of the old timers. Back in 1940 something, this bloke hit X amount of home runs, but then it's always comes with an asterisk. It's just like, yeah, that's before slavery. That's before any coloured people were allowed to play. So you actively weren't playing against the best. You were playing against a certain percentage of the population. And they actually had the Negro League, and that's not an offensive way. That was actively called the Negro League, and they had the regular national league where non-colours were allowed to play. So there was a divide, and so there's actually a genuine asterisk against those stats, where once upon a time they were celebrated, and I would say in the last 20 odd years, that one that comes up and someone goes, "Oh, what about Joe Schmo from 1947's Cleveland, whatever." Immediately, fans of statistical knowledge just goes, no, that's not even remotely close to some of the stats some of the people in the Negro League were doing. So it's actually a genuine conversation we have in baseball because it's such a stat-driven sport as well. So I think it's a harder conversation here, given it's kind of location-based rather than anything else. But yeah, it'd be an interesting point. So I wouldn't mind reaching out to the Purple Army to ask them whether they've actually looked into the quality, if there's any statistical evidence we can use to the quality of Waffle and Sample and the VFL, apart from the odd game they played each other on, where they'll probably poured 1,000 drinks into them the night before. Who knows? Just to see whether it was actually genuinely a competition that was surpassed the other two. So that'd be interesting to see. So look, I think the safest option is just to take on what we all agree is the national competition, the AFL, and therefore Buddy's coming first. And we just celebrate this and we get on with it. And Buddy should just get the keys to the city and we move on with our lives, and keys to Melbourne while we're at it. So let's just do that. I don't understand what the problem is. Keys
to every major city in Australia,
even Newcastle.
We won't exclude the Waffle and Sample here. Buddy's coming for you. No, that's awesome, mate. All right, well, clearly that's a very interesting point. Something a bit more serious, obviously, Daisy was attacked by Rex Hunt and Dermy last week, I think, and we spoke about it, but she's responded classy as ever.
Oh, mate, seriously.
Just didn't even really phase her, made a comment, acknowledged it, and, just another reason to love Daisy Pearce, I think.
It was a perfect response. I think to sum it up, she said something along the lines of, I think, not verbatim, but effectively these words were like, when Rex Hunt and Dermy hear Wayne Carey, they see themselves. And I think what they're mentioning is they see, a veteran of the game that was storied and has all the history that goes with him. When he's talking and fans are listening, they see themselves in that. And when they hear a more modern female voice talking alongside him, they don't hear themselves in her. And that was just an unbelievably classy way to say, it's okay that they feel that way, but it's also not where we're heading at the same time. So yeah, good on Daisy, just perfect. And I strongly recommend to all fans out there to go find that interview. Happened late last week, I'd say. Real classy stuff from Daisy Pearce.
Legend. All right, mate. I think we touched on this earlier, but yeah, it was just a really special day at the footy. We had the whole bevy crew there for the first time in the one location, having beers, watching the footy. We had the halftime report that went out on our socials. We had Jules there with her partner Erin. We had Steve-O, who was sitting with his dad and his brother, but we caught up with at halftime and after the game. We obviously had Brett and his little boy Taj, and then we had you, and then you had your support side there as well with Danny and Carol, your mum, and your partner. I've stuffed up the order there, but you know what I'm talking about because it's your life. Yeah, it was awesome, wasn't it? I was gushing with emotion.
It was really fun because, behind the scenes as well for everyone at home is that we have this little bevy crew. Noddy and I are typically on the potty most weeks, but we do occasionally have someone to fill in for us. And Steve-O and Noddy did the podcast all last year together. And Steve-O's had some other commitments this year, so he's not able to do it. So I've stepped into the ring. But it's just to have everyone together. And we talk all the time online. So to see each other in person for the first time was super special and share a beer. And hoping that that's not the only one. Hoping we knock down a lot more beers in the future. Because, good crew of people to have around. Very, very happy to have such a cool bunch of friends that like football as much as we do, mate. It's really fun.
Yeah, definitely. It was really, really cool. All right, mate, we better crack on with the quick preview, I guess. So we are up against the Greater Western Sydney Giants. Have they not moved to Canberra yet? Okay, just checking.
Well, their numbers over there in terms of attendance is higher in Canberra, so that's one of the arguments for them to move over. Right?
Absolutely. Just move them straight over there. Anyway, so Swans 6th playing GWS in 15th. As we've mentioned, we're coming off a 3-game winning streak. GWS, conversely, are coming off a 3-game losing streak. We've won 4 from our last 5 and they've won 1 from their last 5. In our last 5 games against each other, victory's been shared on-off. So what I mean by that is from 2020 onwards in the 5 games we've played, Sydney's won, Giants have won, Sydney's won, Giants have won, Sydney has won. So when we have won, it's been by at least 20 points. So going back to 2020 and working to current, 41 points, 26 points and 20 points. But when the Giants have won, it's been by single digits only. So remember that 2-point win where Kelly got that kick towards the end of the fourth quarter in 2021. And then, of course, the elimination final that I constantly reference because I still think about it.
Stop bringing
1
it up.
point.
Stop bringing it up.
So when and if they win, it's a close game. But when we win, it's more of a comfortable performance. And obviously our latest one that we played was in round 1 this year at Homebush that I went to and took my partner Nerida and our son Little Plugger or Little Buddy, and we're still, I guess that's up in the air. But and that was obviously a good win there. I think we won by 20 points to kick off the season this year. So look, I don't think it's going to be an easy game. They're always pretty tough games, and Toby Green has a way of just making magic happen. Or making dirty acts happen, 50-50, you pick it. I will say that in terms of rankings and stuff, so we're coming 3rd for tackles, they're coming 4th, so they got some good pressure. We're coming 3rd for inside 50s, and then they drop down to 12th, so they don't have that forward half pressure as much. In terms of inside 50 efficiency, we're coming 2nd, and the Giants are coming dead last. But in terms of disposal efficiency, the Giants are better than us. They're coming 5th, and we're coming 9th. So it's going to be an interesting, matchup. Have you got any? I know we were talking about Clarkey before, and we're assuming that he'll hold. Who do you think he gets the job on this week?
Yes, I had a couple of chats with that online as well with Zayna Renner-White as well. We talked about Himmelberg. Himmelberg's a fair bit bigger, close to 3 inches taller and 10 kilos heavier. So it's a bit of a weird matchup. Himmelberg's not like the kind of running player as well necessarily. So Clark to be flat-footed at the same time as having to take on a bigger bloke is a bit tricky. Don't get me, Himmelberg does go for a run, but not as much as some of the others. I guess that would arguably be a good matchup. And you've got here Cumming potentially as a guy.
I know he's kind of like a little bit like what Lloyd was to us last year, where he takes the kick in. So he gets like high numbers and stuff. But he's certainly, with Lockie Whitfield out, and I think he still might be for this week, you would think that he's that sort of, if Lockie Ash doesn't have a run with role, then he's the guy that's going to run out. But I mean, I haven't watched too many Giants games this year, certainly not since Leon Cameron, threw in the towel. But McVeigh, there's a famous New South Wales footy name. So much so I'm forgetting his first name. Adam McVeigh? Mark McVeigh, thank you. Yeah. Mark McVeigh, he has swung the magnets around, and I think Himmelberg, who was primarily not a key forward, but certainly a second tall for most of his career. I think he's been playing off the centre halfback, so that's where he's getting some of these numbers from, and I think that's why Zane and you were saying that maybe Clark gets a job on him. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It's so funny how tagging is such a talking point, isn't it?
Now
it's like, who's he going to shut down?
It's pretty interesting. The tag is back, and I'm loving it. I'm loving it, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the pressure that he's applying. We've already spoken about him. He's kicking a goal and a half a game. So yeah, it's awesome. The other thing is they've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. It's more of a pride position. We've got a lot more to lose, I think, in the grand scheme of things. So it's going to be interesting. Obviously, this is a home game. We've got 2 in a row, so this is back at the SCG. I think it's also a Saturday Arvo game, isn't it? Or is it Sunday, this one?
Saturday Arvo, 2:30, I think, so 2:50.
Another Arvo game. So let's hope the weather gods play nice, and we might get some dry weather. Who knows? If we were a bit more organised, we could have done a week weather forecast. But the way things are going in Sydney at the moment, you're better off just to pack a brolly and assume it's going to rain.
It's going to be one of those games where I don't know if our big intercept defenders are going to be necessary, just in the way they are. So they score a fair bit out of the centres, Taranto, Green, when he's around Cornelio. So it's going to be, I don't know what exactly to do there. Maybe this is the week where Will Gould steps in and old Rampy has a rest. But I think even the coaches said during the week is that Gould is a little ways away. I think they were quite open about that. So, so I don't know.
I heard that he was tracking well.
Yeah, tracking well, but not like... Tracking well, but still work to be done for consistency-wise, I think they mentioned.
Yeah, okay.
So I don't know
Keeping
what we
us
do
on
there.
Our toes.
Yeah, exactly, maybe. And then they just drop the hammer and just drop a Will Gould hammer and everyone just loses their minds. But so I don't know how we're going to – I don't know. It's kind of a weird matchup whether we kind of are better off going a bit smaller and a bit faster in the defence there. But let's see where it ends up. I don't want to mess with the defensive unit there, considering how well they've been firing of late. Track on that. Maybe a bigger game by Ollie Florent to nail it out.
Well, he had that cracker against them in round 1. Potentially. Mate, one last thing, and this is also related to GWS. It's going to be very interesting to see how Hopper and Taranto and potentially Tom Green, if he comes back and he was rested last week, how they go, because these names have been on many a Swans fan chat. And not just us. I think every club would love to get their dirty little black and yellow and black hands on Hopper and or Taranto, but probably more Tom Green, given the grandfather connection there. Yeah. But excuse me. It's going to be one of these interesting trade periods if we can, if we're able to have a go at one and or. But I mean, here's a question without notice: Hopper or Taranto or Tom Green, if they're available, who would you go with?
I have to go Tom Green. I think. Just the size of him, just the potential he has, he's getting better.
The ready-made Joey replacement. Yeah.
Honestly, and I think that's one of the big things that we're missing is just that one big bull. Parker's not going to be perfect forever, although, still playing well, and Kennedy's stepping out. So, another big bull in there would be incredible. So what would you say?
Yeah.
Would you head the same way?
Yeah, no, I think I'm with you, mate, because like the way I see Hopper, and he's had like a bit of this year out, and I think that's why people are leaning towards Timmy Taranto because he's played more this year. But the way I see their mix of their midfield unit, which is star-studded as we know, Hopper really is that sort of burst out of the centre square player, and we've got as we've been talking about, we've got Papley, we've got Warner,
McInerney potentially.
McInerney can also do that. So I don't know. He's similar size and stature to Cal Mills, so it would certainly be awesome to have another large and strong and fast player in there. But I think that's why they're saying Taranto for a point of difference, because he's a bit more offensively minded. Clearly can go in the middle, but he also can roll forward and kick goals. So, but then if you think about that, it's not like we're missing that either at the moment. But I guess it's just like a depth thing. You're bringing in a tested and tried performer at AFL level, and in that age bracket, it's the age bracket that I think we're targeting, and that's probably where Tom Green has a slight disadvantage there. Hopper and Taranto are 25, 24 respectively. Tom Green is still in that bracket of our younger guys. So, but yeah, I think I'm with you. I think Tom Green is such a good player, and he's the ready-made Joey replacement, and it's no wonder that all these three guys are wanted by everyone. Yeah. We've already mentioned in previous podcasts that Harley's been on the record saying that Dusty and Sydney is not a thing. So, it's funny seeing all these Richmond chats, all their fans saying, "Yeah, we better get all these heaps good players if we're going to lose." I saw that.
I saw one just like, if we get Rowbottom and Warner, and you guys get Dusty. And it's like, in what universe is that going to happen? Like, this is silly. So,
if that happens, and I am praying that it doesn't, I will eat my collection of Swans hats.
There's quite a few of them. How many? Is it at least 20?
I've got a few. I've got some crazy merch. But look, I don't know. It's on the record as not being a thing, so it's all good. But just the way that fans scramble when they lose a player that they love, they're like, they just go shopping. They're like, I want everything and everyone. Yeah. Anyway.
Need we remind everyone about the Dawson situation? You don't always get what they're worth, people.
Exactly.
So revert to
Carol.
Yeah.
Where's Carol?
Carol,
Get Carol in here. Boo.
My mum will boo the living daylights out of the guy until he dies. That's my mum's situation. So she's hardcore. Latinas, don't mess with them. That's the general sense.
That's it, mate. That's it. So good. All right, mate. Well, that brings us to the end of the episode. So on behalf of the Bevy, I'd like to say thanks to all you Cygnets and Swanlings out there listening in. Make sure to keep following us on Instagram and Facebook at A Bevy of Bloods for various content, updates and announcements. Until then, up the Bloods.
Can you Swannies?
Come on, boys. Here we go.